Today we're talking about the truth about women and Freemasonry. We've been reading this book, this Masonic book that's over 120 years old that lays out a lot of information on Freemasonry, and we're at a part that's now going to talk about women and their involvement in Freemasonry. But because this book is very old, not only are we going to look at this, but we're going to explore what a modern Master Mason today has to say about the role of women in Freemasonry. Now, this is a very important topic. As we've been going through this book, I've been talking about, certain things I agree with, certain things that I disagree with. And I have to say that the view on women and gender is something that I disagree very strongly with when it comes to Freemasonry. Now, there are some interesting elements in Freemasonry, and I've talked about that before in my other videos, but this is something that's really important that we discuss and we talk about. And again, if you want to see my other videos on Masonry, check them out. We have so many videos on a whole playlist. I'll link to it at the end of this video, but let's just start and get right into this, because again, this is an older book. It's over 100 years old, 120 years old. But not only that, we're going to be taking a look at modern Masonry as well. And it's a very complex topic, but a very important topic, a very critical topic. And this is one of the probably biggest problems that I have had with Freemasonry. So let's start and take a look. So the traditions of Masonry in later times exclude women from participating in the work of the lodge, but not from all the rights and benefits of the craft. The reasons that have led to the exclusion of women need not here be discussed. A sufficient answer to all advocates of androgynous Masonry may be found in the history of all attempts to establish or to revive it. Each and all have failed and have generally proved fruitful of discord and scandal. So essentially what they're saying here is that women are excluded from the work of the lodge, but not from all the rights of the craft. So there are some things that are okay, some things that are not okay. And those that advocate for an androgynous Masonry, meaning in that terms including both men and women, they're saying that all these attempts have failed because they've been have been full of discord and scandal. So their point is kind of saying that if you include women, you're going to get discord, scandal, and chaos. This is not true. This is a very sexist position to take. But let's continue, and remember, this is an older book. So for those of you who may be watching who are Masons, try and not get too angry or something, because I'm going to also look at modern Masonry, which does or can include women, but it's more complex. So let's just keep reading here. So, nor is woman either the loser or the most to blame for this result. All right, so they're saying that it's not women's fault for this result. So the ancient mysteries were organized schools of learning, and knowledge was the signal of progress and the basis of fellowship. In modern Masonry, fraternity, a brotherhood, alone has usurped the place of wisdom. And in the service of the lodge to mankind, its great work has been to preserve unaltered the ancient landmarks as a heritage to posterity. Every true Mason for centuries has thus been a soldier of the truth, fighting for its altars and its fires. In this work of the lodge, woman could have been of no service. While every true Mason is the most loyal of men to every office of woman, as mother, sister, daughter, and wife, as companion, friend, and inspirer of man, he would have been trammeled by her presence in the lodge, and she would have received no benefit by being admitted. So again, they're saying while Masons respect women, if you brought women into the lodge, you would have discord, and that women would have no benefit from it anyway. Again, I disagree with all of this, but let's just keep reading because I want to have a big picture of the position here. So when, however, the days of ritualism alone are ended, when from the one duty of guarding the altars and lighting the campfires, Masonry resumes its prerogative as teacher and enlightener of mankind, and philosophy of nature and life are unfolded in its schools and colleges. as with the Magi of old. And when no fear of persecution from time-serving potentate or creed-ridden priest, the light may shine for all. Then will the doors of real initiation be open to woman as to man, as was the case in the schools of Pythagoras, as shown by Iamblichus. So basically here what they're saying is that when they don't have to fear persecution, then they can open the doors to both men and women. That's I mean, there's a lot we could say about that. It's I don't agree. But however, today in modern times, you don't have to worry about that anymore. There's no need for the secrecy or exclusion of women. And there has been an inclusion of women to a certain degree, but we're going to see it's not perfect. So the ancient wisdom concerned itself largely with the souls of men and undertook to elevate the earthly life by purifying the soul and exalting its ideals. It teaches that souls are sexless and that the sex of the body is an incident of gestation. Now, this I agree with, and I think this is very cool. Basically, that souls have no sex, souls have no gender. And that the body that you happen to have, it's an incident of gestation, meaning it's more or less random. Not literally random, but it's a contingent fact. It just so happens to be the case that some people are born a certain way and how their bodies are formed. But that the soul itself, or in Hyperianism, the eternal mind, is, they say sexless. We would say not only sexless, but also genderless. So no civilization known to man has ever risen to any great heights or long maintained its supremacy that debased women. So, that's a good point, a positive thing that they are saying. But let's just continue here. Indeed, the secret doctrine demonstrates with unmistakable clearness that sexual debasement in any form is the highway to degeneracy and destruction of both man and women, and of nations quite as certainly as of individuals. So they say you don't want to debase women, you want to respect women, you want to treat them well. So, yes, this is good. So the most debased and horrible chapters in human history are recorded in scientific works by medical experts. Atavism is here exemplified as nowhere else. Here, more than anywhere else, within the possible experiences of man, lies the sin against the Holy Ghost. For through this open door, through which rush the most unholy passions and the hellish fires of lust, it is possible for man to lose his human soul and descend to the animals. If anyone doubts this, let him read, if he can, some of the scientific medical work on sex perverts, and then consult the attendant physicians of the insane and symptoms and records of lunacy. So, this is a little odd. They're basically saying that opening yourself open to lust can have you descend to the level of animals. That's a little ridiculous as well, as long as there's mutual consent and everything is done safely, and everything, then one can engage in sexual, lustful interactions, and that's totally fine. Again, as long as everything's on board, everything's consentful, everything's safe, then there's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to descend to the level of the animal, but you might be expressing animalistic urges, but that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're here to grow, learn, explore, and express. And to express animalistic urges, again, done safely and consensually, there's nothing wrong with that. So the first lesson we are taught in Masonry is to be good men and true. And the first declaration made by the neophyte in Masonry is that he comes to the lodge to learn, to subdue his passions and improve himself in Masonry, to engage in the building of a fit temple for an indwelling soul. It may be seen that all the traditions and usages of Masonry agree fully with the philosophy of the secret doctrine is true initiation, and that both are justified by all experience, all by history, and all scientific discovery and advancement up to date. I just want to mention that I'm kind of trying to read this quickly because I want to get to reading about the modern view on it, because this book is a little old. So we don't have much. We just have basically 2 more pages, and then we'll look at that. These ancient institutions, derided and misrepresented, persecuted, and suppressed as they have been for the last 1,500 years, will, in the age that is now dawning, demonstrate their beneficence and their power, and the marvel will be that the ignorance and brutality of man could have so long succeeded in suppressing them. It is true even yet that among otherwise intelligent persons, the majority do not believe that any such fountain of knowledge has ever existed. Let me see if are they done talking about the part about women? Let me see. Yes, I believe. Yes, okay. So I believe that this particular book, we're going to take a look at now a modern interpretation of it. So the position of this book is essentially, more or less, that women can take part in some of the rites, but aren't admitted to, certain things regarding the lodge itself. And the reason for this is because they say that it would end up in discord and it would fall apart, citing different things like, lust and other elements regarding the passions, and that, women wouldn't benefit from it, and it would just basically kind of like distract men, essentially. Like, that's more or less what is being said here. So obviously I don't agree with this. This is very sexist and ridiculous, and why we have a lot of problems in the world is because we have rejected the feminine. Now, reality is how it is. And humanity has arbitrarily divided it up into these like ideas of what is masculine and what is feminine. And largely, we have been ruled by a masculine society. And by rejecting that feminine, which we have arbitrarily, circumscribed and cut off, by rejecting that, we have rejected half of what existence is all about. So if you look around and see all the chaos in the world, a very large part of the huge amounts of chaos that we see is because of that arbitrarily circumscription of what is feminine and cutting it off. You can see this in, nation against nation, fighting for war and dominance, and, all these rulers trying to, it's basically like a dick measuring contest with who has the most nuclear weapons, or with, the different rich elite who can get into space first. It's a lot of this division and chaos that we have is because, like I said, of this arbitrary circumscription of what we have defined as feminine and being cutting it off. We are lacking unity. We are lacking care. We are lacking compassion. We are lacking nurturing. This world is very much lacking in all of these things because of this dominant force that has pushed out what the world has defined as feminine. So I very much disagree with this idea that, introducing women is going to cause chaos and they won't even get anything from it anyway. No, that's dumb. If that's true, change your system. There's something wrong with your system. If that's what your system is causing, there's a problem with the system. There's not a problem with women. There's a problem with your system, if that's what's happening. But let's now take a look at, from a modern masonry. This is an article called "Can a Woman Be a Freemason?" from FreemasonryReport.com. And this book is by Ed Pisani Jr., who is a master mason and past worshipful master, who's been active in Freemasonry for close to 2 decades. So, and then you see this book called A Handbook for the Freemason's Wife. And it starts off with, let me see. Can you guys see this? Yes, there's a lot of ads on this, but you can see it. So, can a woman become a Freemasonry? Yes and no. So now we're going to look at the, modern interpretation of this. Now, I've read so many books and whatnot, so I can't remember where I have heard this. But from what I have heard, is that as time progressed, that yes, they did begin to include women. However, it was very segregated. And what women did were basically not that important. They were mostly given duties like organizing charities or picnics or events, where the men's lodge would focus on, like the actual studying of philosophy and wisdom and knowledge and all that. So it was, they included women, but it was kind of like, okay, sure, but you go over there and do the women's work. It was sort of like that. Now, in modern masonry, that's not true. They do have particular orders for women, but as you'll see, it's still it's not like officially recognized by certain masonry groups, and you'll see. We'll go through this, and it's still I don't like it. I still don't like it. But let's go forward and see what this Master Mason has to say. So, can a woman become a Freemason? Yes and no. Here is why. Most Grand Lodges historically are men only. And those Grand Lodges will not allow a woman to go through the 3 degrees to become a Master Mason. Now remember, this is a modern article now, from a modern Master Mason. But there are certain Grand Lodges where being a Master Mason and woman is okay with them. That is why some Grand Lodges views others as being irregular in nature. So let's take a good look at this topic in detail. So they're now saying here that historically Grand Lodges have been men only, but that there are some Grand Lodges who are okay with women being included. But some of the Grand Lodges think that this is unnatural and irregular, and don't officially recognize those, as we'll see. So in Freemasonry, as in all areas of life, women do play an important role. The opportunities for women to participate in Freemasonry are widespread for most Grand Lodges. They are honored and help the fraternity meet a variety of needs, from social interactions to specific leadership roles in girls' youth organizations inside the Freemason family. Did you know that there are specific orders for both men and women? Yes, they are called the Order of the Eastern Star, the Order of the Amaranth, the White Shrine in Jerusalem, the Daughters of the Nile, the Ladies' Oriental Shrine of North America, the Daughters of Mokana, and the Social Order of Bucient. Now, what you're seeing here now is that there is a segregation. It's not that there is a segregation. BC, you have the Daughters of the Nile and whatnot. So this is a women's group. It's not mixed. It's not men and women intermingling. It is segregated. So, but let's continue. See, these organizations meet the unique needs in the women's only Masonic related organizations. The moral and ethical values that Freemasonry encourages are universal and not gender-based. It is true that Masonic lodges maintain a long-standing tradition of restricting membership in Freemasonry to men. The tradition is based on the historical all-male membership of stonemason guilds. During the Middle Ages, the men traveled far from home and lived in lodges while constructing great cathedrals throughout Europe. However, in the mid-1800s, the fraternity took the progressive step to create women-only or co-ed fraternal appendant bodies in Freemasonry. These organizations thus provided an avenue for men and women, husbands and wives, mothers and sons, adult daughters and fathers, and so on, could share Masonic fellowship with each other. Further, there are a few regional, national, international Masonic-related youth organizations, and they list them here, saying that it's kind of like Girl Scouts. Now, women that are Master Masons, did you know that there are a few female-only Grand Lodges? It is true. The Order of Women Freemasonry and HFAF, Freemasonry for Women, they both follow exactly the same ceremonies and wear the same regalia as traditional men-only Master Mason lodges. So let's take a closer look at these organizations. So now these are a different type of organization that is being looked at, where it is the Order of Women Freemasons. So the Order of Women Freemasons is the oldest and largest Masonic organization for women in the country and works on the lines of regular male Masonry. The United Grand Lodges of England, in a statement issued in 1999, acknowledged the sincerity of women's Masonic organization. The UGLE, although do not officially recognize it and their members. So this is important. The United Grand Lodge of England doesn't officially recognize the Order of Women Freemasons or their members. They acknowledge the sincerity of it, but do not officially recognize them. Any women of any race or faith can join our order, but must be 21 years or older, of good characters, believe in a supreme being, etc., etc. And they do call their members by the title of brother. So you can see that it's better than it was. But you're getting this where it's mostly still segregated into men and women, and it's not officially recognized by a large governing body of Freemasonry, and they still call each other brother. It still has this very, very masculine overtone to it. So the Honorable Fraternity of Ancient Masonry, let me just see if we need to read all this. So there are some mixed Masonic fraternities. So the brief history of women Master Masons. They wish to have it to be noted that women's Freemasonry predates both the Women's Institute founded in 1915 and the Towns Women's Guild, which started in 1929. So it just talks about a little bit of the history, which is not terribly important. It's just a rather long article, so I just want to pick out the most important parts. And this is mostly just history, which is interesting. If you want to read the history, check out this website. It's called "Can a Woman Be a Freemason" by FreemasonryReport.com. All right, so this is all right. So the rite of adoption was a Masonic rite which appeared in France in the 18th century. Lodges of adoption were usually attached to regular craft lodges, but admitted the female relatives of Freemasons to mixed lodge with its own ritual. The number of degrees varied over its history, but the first three bore the same as the craft degrees, although the passwords and themes of the ritual were quite different. Further, yeah. So, and then the rite of adoption is often seen as a prototype for contemporary concordant bodies admitting the wives and daughters of Freemasonry, such as the Order of the Eastern Star. And you will hear that a lot, the Order of the Eastern Star today, which is who admit wives and daughters of Freemasons. So, and that is essentially so what you have here basically is a history of, well, in the beginning, women were really not admitted. Then you had them be, able to be involved, but they really weren't taking part of the main rites and the main rituals. They were sort of doing what would be considered women's work as the wives or daughters of Freemasons, like organizing charities, organizing events, things like that. Now, today, you do have orders where are women only, and there are some mixed, which are that do take place in the rites. However, they're not officially recognized by some important governing bodies of Freemasonry, and they still use the title of brother and things of that nature. And it is often very segregated. And so, for one thing, the problems that I have with this is that I don't like that it is segregated, and I don't like that it still has this very masculine overtone to it. The titles being brother and whatnot, and the fact that it's not officially recognized by a lot of Masonic governing bodies. And another a very important problem to point out is that it also subscribes to a gender binary here. So someone like myself who is non-binary, which order would I join if I wanted to join Freemasonry? Would I join the male group or would I join the female group? I would be very uncomfortable in either one of those. I would not want to be in either one of those. So there are some things that I like about Masonry, and there are some things that I don't like about Masonry. And I've talked about that. You can check out my other videos, the whole playlist on it. But I think that this is something that's very important because we have had so many issues in the world today because of our denial of what we have arbitrarily defined as feminine. And now we have this massive unintegrated side to the world psyche that results in projection, division, war, bloodshed, and hatred because of this, masculine drive of dominance and control and power and manipulation. And it's not to say that all masculine qualities are bad, not at all. Power and all those things are have good qualities to them, but you don't want to deny half, and you have these arbitrary definitions of what's male, arbitrary definitions of what's female, and we've rejected half. Now we have a world of problems. So in addition to that, right, so as we go forward and as we build a new world, we don't want to be doing that. We don't want to be going, oh, well, you know, here are the men, here are the women, women go do the women's work, men do the men work, and or like reluctantly accept them or things of that nature. We need to look at what we have defined as feminine and embrace it and integrate it. Not to look at it as weakness, not to look at it as foreign, not to look at it as other. You see that a lot today. You see where compassion and care is looked at as weakness, and that's a bunch of bullshit. Compassion and care, to be compassionate, to be strong, to be caring, to be emotionally expressive. These are all strong qualities to be able to do these things. It's a strength to be able to implement these things. And we have a world where all of that has been totally rejected. And look at the horrible state of the world that we live in, because it's lacking in it's lacking in compassion, and it's lacking in care. And so be extremely suspicious of any systems that try and get you to reject those qualities. Because what happens? People want to control you using hate, anger, and fear. Hate, anger, and fear are systems of control and manipulation. People are easily manipulated through hate, anger, and fear. And you see that everywhere. You see that everywhere in the world today. Which is why we need compassion, which is why we need care, and we don't want to look at it as something that is weak or lesser than. That's a bunch of bullshit. Now, also the important thing to do going forward as well, it's not enough to just accept this and embrace this, but we also have to look at how we have arbitrarily defined gender in general, and be accepting of those who are non-binary and gender fluid as well. Because when you do this, you know, if you leave a world that is arbitrarily segregated like this, you're going to have an imbalance, because you want to be able to make room for a synthesis to occur. You want to be able to make room for there to be an exploration of all qualities without these arbitrary cultural definitions of what it means to be a man or what it means to be feminine. So in addition to accepting what has been arbitrarily defined as feminine and integrating it, and not begrudgingly accepting of it or allowing it, but fully embracing it as equal to and just as important as the other, but also to be accepting and embracing and integrating of non-binary and gender fluid identities as well. Because this is very, very important for one to be able to express themselves in whatever way they so will, as long as you're not harming, you know, yourself or the collective, of course. And so any system that is trying to oppress this, that's trying to oppress the feminine, that's trying to suppress compassion, that's trying to suppress care, that's trying to suppress, you know, certain gender identities, these are systems that run on manipulation, dominance, and control, and are leading humanity backwards. So I'm not necessarily implying that Masonry is doing all that. I'm just being very clear about my position and where I stand, and where we stand as a system of evolution and transforming the world. We want to include and integrate all qualities together. That's why in Interstar Actualization, integrating the mirror self is extremely important. And so as I've said in these different videos, there are some good parts of Masonry, some bad parts of Masonry. This is a part that I'm not too thrilled with. I think it can do a lot better. Also, remember, I'm not an expert in Masonry, so there could be exceptions to this. I'm sure that there are lodges that are very forward-thinking, perhaps. So keep in mind I'm being very general based on information that is, put forward here, and it is something that Masonry could do a lot better with. It's something that needs to be improved, and I don't like the idea of holding secrets, because that really affects a person's autonomy. This idea of, you have to do these different rituals and initiations to get to a certain secret. that's going to deter autonomous individuals, because autonomous individuals are going to want to know why. Well, why? Why do I have to do these rituals? What is this secret that I'm trying? That's very suspicious. So that's not the way we operate. We operate much more as a university, where you can come in and learn and grow and acquire the tools to be able to advance yourself and know where you're going, know what you are aspiring to ultimately learn. You might not be able to get there right away, but it's not some secret. Just like quantum mechanics, right? So quantum mechanics is not some secret, but you have to do, you have to learn classical physics, you have to learn wave mechanics and all these different things before you can learn quantum mechanics. It's not just like, oh, well, there's this secret thing that we're not going to tell you that you'll learn someday, but you have to do all these other things first. I don't like the way that operates. And I also don't like the way that gender is, I don't like the way how gender is approached. And I think that can be very much improved. And of course, we are accepting of all gender identities, not only accepting, but embracing, because we want to be an integrated society. So that's what's really important. And again, if this is your first video you saw me talk about on Freemasonry, this was a little more of a negative one, but check out my other videos, because there are things that I think are good about Freemasonry. So I'm just very honest. I'll tell you what I like, I'll tell you what I don't like. And there are certain things I like, certain things I don't like. How gender is approached, I do not like at all. I think that that's an area that can be very much improved, and I hope that it is very much improved. So my friends, I hope you enjoyed that. Very important video. Again, check out my playlist. I have a whole playlist on Masonry. Go check it out right now. And if you haven't liked and subscribed, please do. And if you ever feel like you've ever learned something or gotten something from my videos, consider supporting on Patreon. It helps out a lot. It's the best way you can support my work. You'll get access to our weekly secret live streams, our Discord server, the Citadel, and a lot more. Helps out a lot. The link will pop up right over here. And I want to give a big shout out to our supporters on Patreon, especially Zach, Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Michael, Angela, Maria, Top of the World, Ethan, DB, and Storm the Delta. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it very much.